We are mindful of time, so I will go ahead and get started. And on behalf of the team at Amplify, I would like to welcome you to our very first Amplify Breaking Free from Nicotine Summit. Message, motivation, and momentum. Are you ready? Because we're ready. My name is Yolande Burris, and my pronouns are she, hers. And I'm the program manager for Amplify, the African American Statewide Coordinating Center. We're a public health program funded by the California Tobacco Control Prevention Program, and I'll be your moderator for today. So if you could please take a moment and say hello to us in the chat there, and we're happy to have you join us today, and we'd love to know which organization you're affiliated with, or what city and state you're watching us from. So we know we have folks joining us from all over the country. We're so excited. Thank you so much. In addition, we will be running some polls throughout our time together. So to keep this a bit interactive. So as we pull throughout our summit, we're going to start one of the polls shortly. And it is our question. The first one is, will the incorporation, or do you believe that incorporating culturally tailored cessation efforts in your state or community will significantly impact African American health outcomes, and why? So I'll get that poll started. Now, I have the pleasure today to share this platform with a few of the most renowned African American women in tobacco control policy today. Our summit keynote speakers bring a vast knowledge of expertise to this subject among African Americans. It's our hope that you receive a powerful message, you leave motivated and ready to build momentum regarding the need for culturally tailored cessation. Today's keynote speakers are Dr. Karen Beard, a certified tobacco treatment specialist, Dr. Valerie Yerger, a licensed naturopathic doctor and professor at UCSF, and Carol Magruder, African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council co-chair and My Projects program director. Our agenda today will consist of 3 keynote speakers, which I've just gone over, as well as a 15-minute Q&A session. We have about 2 hours together. It's going to go by rather quickly, and we're going to have some time together. It's going to be engaging, and I think you're really going to have some great takeaways. So I'll be covering summit objectives and the importance of tobacco cessation. Our keynote speaker, Dr. Karen Beard, will be discussing nicotine cessation versus nicotine liberation. Dr. Valerie Yerger will be discussing emotional brain training and the Spiral Up Light app. And Carol Magruder will round us out with advocacy momentum strategies. So please direct any questions that you have during their presentations into the question and answer box, and we'll field it toward the end. And I'll let the poll remain for just a few more seconds. Awesome. And now the results should be shared. Thank you for answering that. It's really great information that will assist us along the way in our cessation journey. So now that you had a moment to review the agenda, let's discuss learning outcomes. So today, projected learning outcomes involve actionable and proactive strategies and activities presented by our public health professionals and cessation experts. They'll surround culturally tailored cessation for African Americans throughout the state and the nation. You'll leave knowing how and why organizations and providers can be doing more culturally tailored cessation services to the African American and Black diaspora community. Just a quick housekeeping, couple of items. We will have a 15-minute Q&A session that will commence after the last presenter of the day. And once again, please field your presenter questions to our Q&A box. And just a reminder that if you're viewing the webinar, your microphone and video are off. Our staff will be monitoring the Zoom chat, so please feel free to ask general questions and leave comments. And a recording, resource lists, and handouts of our presentations will be sent to you shortly after the summit. Are you all ready to begin? I know I am, and I'm excited. So let's start it off with the undo.org's campaign. This is their latest campaign that I applaud. This is presented by the California Tobacco Prevention Program, and they did a great job at storytelling and using realistic scenarios and actors.
Maybe a superhero or a supervillain?
Superhero.
Superhero? Okay. I joined the military for my kid. I was always gone. Everyone's vaping constantly. That's how a lot of people try to deal with mental issues. I was hooked like that. Superhero or supervillain?
Superhero.
Superhero? I caught my son trying to hit my vape. He's like little me. He does everything that I do. That was it. I had to quit.
So we're definitely on our way with more engaging stories to tell and not marketing fear to our people. Now, according to the CDC, sharing health messages that feature African American people and their experiences through mass media campaigns were proven to increase smoking cessation prevention and tobacco use initiation and prevalence within African Americans. Now, California has some of the strongest tobacco policies in the nation, yet California's African American population has a staggering 18% tobacco prevalence rate usage. So this includes cigarettes, cigars, hookah, little cigarillos, smokeless tobacco products, vapes. African Americans and Blacks have the second highest usage in the state. Collectively, across sectors, we have to identify root causes to help our community through education and stronger cessation efforts. Now, although proven treatments such as behavioral counseling and FDA-approved medicines increase likelihood that people will quit smoking successfully, African Americans who smoke also run into barriers when they're trying to find and use these proven treatments. California's Quit Line, Kick It California, reported that only 16.5% of their callers and service users were African American. Now, studies find that African Americans experience unique barriers, and this can include access to care, the high prevalence and normality of smoking as a cultural norm, and access to cheaper, loose cigarettes in their communities, individual factors related to stressors, and mental health. So I stress again that it's time to increase access to culturally tailored cessation services. I like to say for our community that it just hits different. So this is where AMPLIFY the African American Statewide Coordinating Center comes into play. We were established in 2018 through the California Tobacco Prevention Program and are funded through Proposition 56, the Cigarette Tax Initiative. We provide technical support to community-based organizations throughout the state, and we work within the communities to eliminate the burden of tobacco. We love Black smokers, and we never vilify them for smoking, but want them to live a life that's free of addiction and nicotine. So I don't do this alone. I have a fabulous team by my side, led by Carol Magruder as our program director, Ernesta Wright as our leadership development coordinator, Dr. Karen Beard, our tobacco cessation resource specialist, Reverend Pastor Sauls as our faith leadership director, and Dr. Robin Battle as our program evaluator. I would love for you to reach out to us. I'm sure that there's something that we could do, particularly if you have a scope of work and activities. We help navigate tobacco prevention. We do custom assistance and support. We also offer moral support. We have cessation and quitting and smoking support and programs. We help programs engage the Black community. We build capacity of your project through these activities. We have our very own leadership development program, and we host a plethora of trainings, workshops, and webinars such as these. Cessation. We have launched our very own cessation program, Kick It Now, Free Yourself from Nicotine. This is a counseling and stop smoking and vaping resource center located online at our website at amplify.love/cessation-support. Nationally, less than 30% of Black adults who smoke reported using cessation counseling or medication when they were trying to quit. And we believe these numbers can be shifted when you factor in culturally tailored cessation strategies. Our program's mission is to partner with communities to provide ongoing cultural, competent tobacco cessation services within the community and decrease the demand for nicotine products and eliminate cessation disparities. It's our vision to empower African Americans and those of African descent to free themselves and their communities from nicotine dependence. This program was created in partnership with Amplify and Dr. Karen Beard. Kick It Now's guiding principles is to eliminate smoking cessation disparities in our communities, decrease the demand for all nicotine products, develop culturally appropriate interventions and evidence-based smoking cessation curricula. It's our aim to train culturally competent tobacco treatment specialists, advocate for equitable funding for tobacco cessation services in communities of color, treat tobacco dependence as a chronic health condition. We endorse holistic, culturally relevant smoking cessation treatments and approaches. And we work toward endgame, the elimination of the commercial tobacco epidemic. So what does Kick It Now look like in practice? And what's the broader vision? Well, activities 1 through 4 have been conducted by Dr. Beard in LA County, and we're looking to expand. Our first is pop-up community cessation stations. These have been conducted in the Los Angeles area at local community events and community-based organizations. We've offered community listening circles that focus on tobacco users' unique perspectives on why they smoke and the real stressors and reasons behind their smoking and addiction. We train community tobacco treatment specialists within the community-based organizations where there's limited access to care in their areas. We also train tobacco treatment specialists of diverse backgrounds and ages to help those who want to quit have stronger and deeper relativity. In the future, we like to offer counseling programs through various platforms, in person, virtual, text, and even an app. Our Breaking Free e-zine. If you're a newsletter subscriber, I'm sure you've seen a few by now. We get nothing but compliments on this great magazine. It's one of a kind, and Breaking Free is a monthly cessation focused program. And art has articles focused directly for cessation specialists and also for the community. It was created by Dr. Beard and is supported through AMPLIFY cessation program Kick It Now. You can actually find the latest issue and archives by visiting our website, amplify.love, and going to our cessation support page. And you can also receive the latest magazines via our newsletter. So please, when you go on our website, make sure that you sign up for our newsletters. Breaking Free Day. This is a national day of celebration. We're so happy that we're able to launch the first National Breaking Free Day this year on November 18th. The founder is Dr. Karen Beard, who chose this day to honor and celebrate African Americans who've chosen to break free from nicotine's harmful effects and resist the tobacco industry's predatory practices by saying no to tobacco. So registration is now open. We'd love to have you participate and celebrate wins. And if you know someone who has quit, we would love for them to share their story and be recognized. So please visit breakingfreeday.org for more details. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to our first keynote, Dr. Karen Beard. She'll be speaking to you on the subject of nicotine cessation versus nicotine liberation. Dr. Karen Beard, EDD, an experienced tobacco treatment specialist, is fiercely committed to researching and developing holistic interventions that are effective in not only empowering smokers to become ex-smokers, but empowering them to change their financial and social status. She received a BS in mental health counseling from Gannon University, Erie, Pennsylvania, a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling from the University of South Florida, Tampa, and a Doctor of Education degree in counseling psychology from Advocacy University. In a career that spans over 30 years, she is an independent contractor providing case management and counseling services on behalf of the Federal Department of Labor, Department of Veteran Affairs, and state worker compensation programs. Dr. Beard was also a vocational expert for Social Security Administration. Her research interests include tobacco policy and cessation implementation. She's an African American Tobacco Control and Leadership Council board member and the Tobacco Cessation Resource Specialist for our project, AMPLIFY. Dr. Beard also serves as the tobacco treatment expert for the California Black Women's Health Project. She supports and is a program advocate for the Truth Initiative and National African American Tobacco Prevention Network, NAPTN. Dr. Karen Beard.
Thank you, Yolande, for that introduction. Let me pull up my slides. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Beard, as Yolande has said, and I'm excited to be here with you this morning to talk about a topic that is dear to my heart, and that's cessation. And as you can see, my topic this morning is restoration, liberation, moving beyond cessation. African Americans who want to give up nicotine require more than just giving up the behavior. And one of the reasons for that is because African Americans living in marginalized communities or neighborhoods face personal and neighborhood challenges that just stopping the behavior won't address. And so focusing on the behavior, giving up the behavior is not an option if we want to save Black lives. And so I became a certified tobacco treatment specialist in 2014. And I began immediately facilitating courses and groups for tobacco-free Florida. I'm a Floridian. And so I began my work in Florida facilitating classes and groups. And then I moved to California and continued my work. And so I've done a lot of facilitating groups and classes. And I've learned a thing or two. And this morning, I want to share with you some of the things that I've learned and why I am advocating that we move beyond cessation if we want to save Black lives. And I promise you, if you listen with an open mind, lean in and absorb what I'm going to share, it will make a difference in how you practice and the lives that you touch. So my agenda this morning, I have 3 things I'd like to accomplish. I want to go more into depth about why I am suggesting that we move beyond cessation-focused interventions. I also want to introduce you to the concept of restorative liberation. And I'm going to provide you with an overview of the restorative liberation framework that I have developed. And I thought I'd begin by just sharing with you some of the reasons for that I hear in my groups and classes from African Americans who smoke, why they use nicotine, reasons for seeking help, and also the fears of giving up nicotine. And so you can look at the slide and see some of them are not surprising. Stress is a big reason for using nicotine, and we have Dr. Yurgo, who's going to really go into depth on stress. And so stress, being lonely, bored, anxiety, negative mental states are the reason for use. Reason for seeking help, as you can see, tired of smelling bad, knee surgery, and giving up, nicotine for a loved one. Some of the fears I hear of giving up nicotine is loss of identity. When people smoke or, use nicotine, they develop a lifestyle around it. And so when we ask people to stop smoking, we're really asking them to change who they are. And that's scary to some people. They say to me, well, when I stop smoking, who will I be? Who will I hang out with? I'm afraid that I'll be lonely because I won't have anybody to hang out with. Also, weight gain, they fear gaining weight, and again, unable to manage stress. Some of the pain points that I hear from people in my groups is that, working 2 jobs, they're overworked. There's more month than money. Family issues, rent going up, car broke down, unsatisfying relationships. And so when you take into consideration the reasons for using nicotine and these pain points, which I call, the daily grind pain points, you can see that there's a lot of mental, psychological, and emotional reasons for using nicotine. Now, couple that with the fact that when African Americans who smoke live in marginalized communities, they also have the challenge of what's called disorderly neighborhood, being a disorderly neighborhood. And according to the Encyclopedia of Quality of Life and Well-being, disorderly neighborhoods refer to observed or perceived physical and social features of neighborhoods that can undermine the quality of life. Let's say that again. That can undermine the quality of life. And so for African Americans who smoke, those challenges include tobacco retail outlet density. It's the research shows that where you have high retail outlet density, you have easy access to the product, and so it's hard to avoid tobacco uh, um, outlets. And so when we tell people in our classes, to avoid the places where you buy your, cigarettes or whatever, it's very hard in communities or neighborhoods where there's a tobacco retail outlet density. And let's not overlook the fact that the tobacco industry's oppressive, predatory marketing practices undermines the quality of life for people living in marginalized, low-income communities. And so if you are with me on that point, that the tobacco industry undermines the quality of life for African Americans in marginalized communities, put a 1 in the chat. Just put a 1 in the chat. And so we have pain points, and we have disorderly neighborhood challenges, which takes me to this little cartoon that I really love. It says, "I'm looking for my quarter I dropped," the man says to the cop. And then the cop says, "Did you drop it here?" And the man said, "No, I dropped it 2 blocks down the street." And the cop said, "Then why are you looking for it here?" And the man said, "Because the light is better." And so I ask you, my question to you this morning is, are we looking for answers only where there's light instead of where the problems or the solutions exist? What are we going to do about African Americans who want to quit smoking, but are challenged by the tobacco industry's practices and the tobacco retailer outlet saturation in their communities? This cartoon I like because it talks about answers. I pose that question: what are we going to do about it? And so this cartoon illustrates there is a simple but wrong way for something, and then there's a complex but right way for something. And so I pose to you that cessation that focuses only on the behavior is transactional, meaning it's simple, it's just an exchange of information. It focuses just on the behavior. And so that is not what we want to be doing. I'm suggesting that we look at restoration liberation, because it's transformational. And I'm going to unpack those terms in a little bit so you'll get a better understanding. So although cessation might seem like the thing that we should be doing, if we are working with African Americans who live in marginalized communities, that's not the right approach, or that's not the effective approach. So we want to be looking at restoration, liberation, which is transformational, because we don't want the African Americans to just stop smoking. We want them to improve the quality of life. We want them to experience personal growth and joy. And so just focusing on the behavior will not do that. Again, focusing on the behavior um, only is not the right thing. Cessation focused interventions focus on goals, tasks. It focuses on the what and the how, and it doesn't usually lead to lasting change. Interventions based on restorative liberation focuses on underlying beliefs, community norms, and pain points. It focuses on physical, emotional, and spiritual healing. That's what the community needs to do, heal from the wounding that has been done by the tobacco industry. And it focused on long-term solutions. And I use that term solutions to emphasize that the healing that comes from restorative liberation is an inside-out job. We want to start on the inside of and heal those pain points and then move on the outside. So we want to focus on the soul and not just, doing. Okay, and research shows that a holistic approach like this is more successful. Now, I'm going to be using a lot of terms this morning, and so I put a slide in here with a glossary to define the terms. I'm not going to take time to read all of this, but after the webinar today, you will have access to the slide and you will be able to understand the different terms. So what is restorative liberation? First of all, liberation is the process of achieving psychological, social, or political freedom from oppression and marginalization. And so when I thought about an approach to work with African Americans that will consider not just giving up the behavior, but also expanding the quality of life for the persons that I'm working with, I came up with an integrated framework based on restorative practices grounded in liberation psychology, psychology of liberation, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the Black model of healing and resilience. Now, the Black model, that BLAC, stands for Black love, activism, and community. Those are the elements of our intervention that I think is needed to heal the Black community from the assaults by the tobacco industry. And that's how I see it. Targeting our community is an assault on the community, and it leaves wounding. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. Restorative liberation is also, it's a guide that you can use to develop your culturally responsive interventions for vulnerable populations living in marginalized neighborhoods. And it uses a consciousness, it's important to raise the conscious of the people who smoke so that we can address internalized oppression that influences the, that influences nicotine use. And so what I mean by internalized oppression is when communities are flooded with uh, tobacco products, marketing gimmicks, like with Newport, Pleasure, uh, Cool, Virginia Slims, and all of the messaging from the tobacco industry. Sometimes what happens is that information is internalized, and now the person begins to believe that's who they are, that's what they should do. And so what I see happening is we have African Americans who believe menthol cigarettes are not, they're good for you. They don't want them taken off the market. I say they've drank the Kool-Aid, they're believing the hype, they're getting played, and that's how I talk about it. When you internalize this message, you're internalizing the oppression that the tobacco industry, and so I try to raise the consciousness in my sessions, raise the consciousness around that issue. And so the framework or guiding principles for restorative liberation, recognition of harm and wounding. What I mean by wounding is that, the tobacco industry targets, and when they target, again, what happens, the wounding represents internal oppression. It represents generational misery, chronic disease, hopelessness, and disorderliness in neighborhoods. And so the targeting in itself is bad, but the wounding of vulnerable people is unconscionable. I believe that it's immoral, and that we have to do something about it. Okay, and then the framework, the guiding principles include personal and community empowerment, community engagement, healing and restoration. And that principle is important, again, because of the neighborhood challenges that African Americans face, and it is always left out of programs that focus on just the behavior. And so that's, again, that's why I'm advocating for restorative liberation. Dialogue and understanding. One of the things that we've done to around dialogue and understanding is that we host what we call talking circles, and that's where we meet with people who smoke, and we provide a safe place for them to share with us just what they think about the work that we're doing, cessation in helping them give up nicotine in general. We talk about why they don't participate in research studies. I believe in a grassroots approach where you go, it's the people first. You go to the people first, and then I look at evidence-based research. Because I think that's important as well. But giving people who smoke an opportunity to have a dialogue with us, and I do that on a quarterly basis. Meet with people who smoke just to find out where they are, what they need, and what they think. We also have done listening circles. That's a bit more formal, but we again meet with people who smoke, and we include people who don't smoke to again find out what the needs are, what they're thinking about. And I have an awesome team that helps me with these circles, Dr. Tashelle Wright, Annie Thomas, and Tanisha. Tanisha's going to kill me because I can't remember her last name, but anyway, Tanisha, they're an awesome team in helping me with these circles. And also accountability, working with African Americans, I always say, it's your life, you know, um, you want to take responsibility for your happiness. And I also believe that the community should have some accountability as well. And culturally responsive, meaning I see the pain points. I know what the fears are. And so when I'm thinking about designing a program, I take those things into consideration. For each group that I facilitate, I meet with each participant individually before we start the group. That way, I can get insight into exactly what the needs are, and then I incorporate that into the group. And so what that means is I know exactly who's sitting in those groups and what they need. And also sustainability. I would like to, we how we measure success sometimes it annoys me because we say you're successful if you quit for 6 months. You're successful if you quit for a year. Now, I'm not putting that down, but I'm saying that, we want them to quit for good. And that should be, we should do follow-up to find out, where people are with staying nicotine free. And I think I talked about this a little bit, the principle of consciousness raising process of change. Now, that principle I took from Prochaska and the stages of change, 10 processes of change, and consciousness raising is one of them. If we want people who smoke to do differently, we can't just give them information on, cessation or how to stop the behavior. We have to kind of shift their minds. And so I use consciousness raising to, in each level, and I'll show you the different levels, to um, to um, to get them to think differently. So why restorative liberation? Again, we want them to heal from internalized oppression, and that is needed. The goal for African Americans living in marginalized neighborhoods is not just to give up nicotine, but to become engaged in saving their lives. Neighborhood residents, I believe, are an untapped resource in the fight against the tobacco industry. And so when we take a restorative liberation standpoint, and which community engagement, community connection is so important, then we have an opportunity to get neighborhood residents involved in this fight. So this is a visual of the restorative liberation framework. I've overlaid it onto Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And most of you probably are familiar with the 5 levels. And so you can see self-care liberation, personal liberation, community liberation, cultural pride, and liberation activism. Now, what I mean by self-care liberation is that, first of all, when I talk about self-care, I let them know that self-care is not a reward or, something that you do just to feel good. I see self-care as a form of resistance against the tobacco industry, because if I can show you how caring for your body is the thing that you should do, then it's easier to make the connection to the tobacco industries, suggesting that you use these products. It would be a conflict for you to value self-care and then smoke. Personal liberation is around resilience. Same thing with community liberation. but it's a strong, resilient through strong bonding in the community. And then cultural pride is about, let's take back who we think we are. The tobacco industry and anybody else should not be telling us who we are through their marketing, um, through any means. We should decide who we are and we should feel proud. Remember, when say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. That kind of mentality, I believe we need to use when we are helping people to give up nicotine. Take pride in who you are without nicotine. And then lastly, liberation activism. Now, everybody is not going to probably get to this level. This level is where you have now achieved giving up nicotine, and um, uh, uh, you want to help others, and so you become active in the community to make your community free of nicotine, and in a way that's comparable to Maslow's self-actualization. So there you have it, the 5 levels in the restorative liberation framework, and it's based on the needs of the community. So I show this slide again, can't talk this morning, slide again to just drive home the point that cessation is simple, but it's wrong for African Americans who live in marginalized communities. Restorative liberation is more complex, hard, maybe takes more up, requires more of us, but it's the way that we should go. And so what does the restorative liberation framework mean for you? It can guide you in intervention planning. It can guide you in program messaging. I don't know if you remember the slide that I showed with the pain points and, why people smoke, stop smoking or their fears. But one of the things that was not on there was health. I've never had any participants say to me, I want to join this group because of my health or anything like that. But yet, our messaging to them, we always say, tobacco, we talk about tobacco related diseases, we talk about health, but I don't think that message resonates with African Americans who smoke. And maybe that's why, as Yulon said, it's only 18% of African Americans who, I believe she said, use these interventions. Individual and group counseling. If you, delve into restorative liberation, or you use the framework, it can help provide you with the content for your individual and your group counseling with people who smoke. Let's see. So your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to think about how the restorative liberation framework can expand beyond cessation, your work with African Americans who smoke. So, what happened? My apologies, my finger hit the wrong button here. So my last slide is just a context slide. So if you would like to learn more about the framework, or you have suggestions or input, feel free to contact me, Dr. Beard at amplify.love and 727-512-1889. And thank you so much for your attention this morning. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beard. the information you shared, especially regarding restorative liberation. I know for many is a new concept for our participants. Um, Healing from internalized oppression. You know, that's a very heavy subject. Um, Conscious raising. You brought up a lot of great points, and you left us with how the restorative liberation framework can expand beyond cessation. How can we expand restorative liberation beyond cessation? That's a great question for us all. Give me one moment. Let's share my screen. All right. Thank you so much for answering our first poll. Your questions were definitely on point with our summit. You all are in the right frame of thinking. I just wanted to read a couple of them. They're all great. We had several to read through, but just a few that stood out is that yes, culture matters. And yes, providing resources that resonates with our people will attract them and motivate them to use them. And absolutely, I'm looking to learn directly from the community as to how I can do so effectively in a culturally humble way. Yes, because national data indicates that 70% of African American smokers want to quit, but only 73% of them are successful. And yes, tobacco cessation is the lowest hanging fruit for, for implementing health equity. And I completely agree with that. So as we shift our narrative surrounding cessation, we also need to shift our marketing efforts from scare tactics to real life storytelling. And at this time, we're going to watch a TikTok video created by our talented AMP Up Community Engagement Award recipient and Leadership Development Program Fellow, Black Hippie.
How can we market cigarettes to white people?
Since the 1950s, tobacco ads have targeted the Black community, making us less likely to quit, more likely to use menthol, and causing 45,000 preventable deaths yearly. So we hit the streets of California to find out what happens if these tactics target a different audience.
How can we market cigarettes to white people?
It's a deep question.
How do we reach them?
Okay.
You lie?
You may or may not get melanin from smoking a cigarette.
Okay.
Are there any places where you see a lot of white people that we could put like a billboard up?
Like rodeos, I imagine that.
A Taylor Swift concert. Marlboros, Taylor Swift.
Perfect for Barbie.
Perfect. That should be the slogan.
So as you can see, we added a bit of humor to a serious situation, and it's been well received. And if you like to utilize this TikTok video or on other social media networks, you can download it on our YouTube at Amplify California 9476. And Joel Boyd, the Black Hippie, is the creator of these great video shorts. Amplified through Community Engagement Awards has been able to give the power back to the people, pride, togetherness, determination, cultural humility. We allow people who are trying to help direct us in the best way in order to serve them. So please take a moment, sign up for our newsletter. We have Community Engagement Awards coming up, once again, a brand new cohort. So if you're interested, you may receive up to $5,000 to do community tobacco education work. Please visit amplify.love to sign up for the newsletter. And this only applies to Californians. I am sorry about that, guys. Our next keynote speaker, Dr. Valerie Yerger, is a professor in health policy at the University of California, San Francisco. Dr. Yerger is clinically trained as a naturopathic doctor and was the first licensed midwife in the state of California. She's also a former health disparities scholar on the National Institute of Health. During the past 20 years, Dr. Yerger's research and advocacy work has focused on framing the disproportionate burden of tobacco among marginalized communities as a social justice and informing public health policies to effectively reach and engage these communities. Her research of previously secret tobacco documents uncovered the tobacco industry's relationships with African American leadership groups, the accumulation of nicotine in tissues containing melanin, the disproportionate marketing of menthol cigarettes in inner city communities, and tobacco companies' in-house research on the use of menthol as an additive in tobacco products. Dr. Yerger served on the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council. Dr. Yerger is the past recipient of numerous awards, including the Truth Initiative's Sybil G. Jacobs Award for Outstanding Use of Tobacco Industry Documents, CTPP's Carol M. Russell Award for Leadership and Vision in Tobacco Control, the currently 2018 UCSF Chancellor Award for Public Service, and Public Health Law Center's Game Changer Award. Whew. Currently, Dr. Yerger oversees the statewide project, The Loop. Please welcome Dr. Valerie Yerger.
Great, thank you for that, Yolande. Just one quick correction. The work that I've been doing is because all of the disproportionate targeting by the industry towards African Americans is a social injustice, not a social justice. So I'm sure people got that, but I just need to say that because I gave up my clinical practice. I gave up delivering babies at home when I started looking at these tobacco industry documents. So I've been on the policy side of this issue for 24 years now. And I am shifting, and I'm just loving Dr. Karen Beard's talk. So right on, I absolutely love your focus of restorative, what did you call it? Restorative liberation. So yes, and I think that my talk over the next several minutes is going to really support your framework. So I'm going to start, and hello everyone, and welcome wherever you are. It's morning here for us in the West Coast, so good afternoon. I have loved ones who are in Florida, so I understand that a lot of us are dealing with some issues globally as well, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time with us this afternoon. So the first thing is first, I'm going to share my slides. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you guys can all see my slides. So whereas we've got this incredible restorative liberation framework to take a look at, we still have some work to do to get there. And we can't get there without all of us who are on this webinar participating in this, and as well as including people who smoke, their loved ones, their community members, and their community stakeholders. And so I had no idea that Dr. Beard was going to start us off with this sense of wellness. And I know that we have challenges, but let's not forget what it is that we're aiming for. And that really is to be well and whole. I'm a naturopathic doctor. This is how I think. I might not bring that into everything that I do here in tobacco control and tobacco prevention, but if we're going towards bringing wholeness and wellness to our people who are smoking, we have to look in terms of some of my naturopathic principles, and I will be sharing that with you during this webinar. So we have poll questions. I'm going to start off with my first poll question and get people sort of interactive in this process. And so I'm going to turn it over to you because I don't have access, I don't think, or do I, Yolande?
Yes, you do.
To starting the poll? You didn't talk to me that I was going to have to do the polls.
Oh, one moment.
I don't know if this is going to work, because if we got to keep going back and forth, I don't want to do that. I don't want to give up control of my slides. It's going to throw us off and it's going to take longer. We can come back to the polls at the end.
Yes, let's come back to it.
Okay, thank you. So all of us are really stressed out, and that's shown by this chart from a recent study on mental distress in the US. And you'll note immediately that despite the age group, the amount of reported stress before the COVID-19 pandemic, which is shown by the blue bars, had increased significantly during the pandemic, which is shown by the orange bars. Now, this doesn't just apply to our family members and loved ones who are smoking. This applies to those of us who are in the workforce. And as somebody who has been asked by the state of California to help them with their sustainability plan moving forward, we have to think about self-care. We can't love onto our people who are smoking if we don't love onto ourselves. So I am going to be talking about how to help those who smoke, but I also want us to know that we can't help others if we don't help ourselves. So what I'm sharing is something that we can all utilize for our own wellness. And it's not just that stress came and went. Stress has stayed with us as a result of COVID. There's this increased global conflicts that are going on. The systemic racism is something that we might be talking more about, but it has not lessened at all. There aren't things in place that I am aware of that is going to bring a relief to the systemic racism. We're hoping that we're moving in that direction, but we have yet to feel any sort of relief. All the other social injustices that are affecting people, financial instability, food insecurity, the climate-related disasters and threats that are going on as we speak. And these social threats don't back off. They all go straight into our brain. And this is what I'm going to be talking about with you in terms of the way that we can really work on recognizing and dealing with the stress. We also, and I just have, put a list of a few places where stress can come from unexpected places. And we face these demands every single day. And unfortunately, many of us have grown accustomed, and we might not feel that we're really stressed out, but our brain is still perceiving a threat. And it's unfortunate because when we don't recognize that we have these ongoing stressors, we don't recognize a need to deal with them. And we think that we're, just going along and being okay, when in fact, we're not okay. And it shows up in how it is that we have our interactions with others, as well as, potential health and mental health in particular issues. So unfortunately, smoking is a coping mechanism that many individuals use to deal with their perceived and actual stressors. Our commercial tobacco control force, we have to tackle both the supply and of this epidemic. And now we need to also start recognizing the need to put some of our efforts, some of our resources into addressing the demand side, which is driven, of course, by the myriad of inequities and injustices facing all of our country's most vulnerable groups. So if we're going to do that, we have to have some sort of, we need tools to be able to address this demand side. So it really calls for us to think about how it is that we're relieving our stress, because ways that I relieve my stress are probably ways that you relieve your stress, which are probably ways that would be helpful for our close loved ones who are struggling with tobacco, to be able to recognize and relieve their stress as well. And it's important for us to understand the importance of finding those opportunities of joy that Dr. Beer mentioned, because when we are secreting our feel-good hormones, be it those precious moments where we're in the presence of someone who makes us feel good, or we're listening to music, or something has triggered a memory that has been extremely powerful in a very positive way for us, we're secreting feel-good hormones at that time, and we're not under stress in those particular moments where we are producing harmful stress-related hormones. So we have to sort of like think about what has worked with us that I can continually use and share with others. So we have to address the root causes of what drives people to smoke. And the reason being, even though we recognize that smoking is a major sort of response to the stressors that we're dealing with, if we don't deal with the underlying root causes, but we're doing great work in terms of the supply, we've got our policies in place, even enforcement seems to be working, and we're getting rid of these products out of the marketplace. If we don't handle the root causes of why people were smoking, unfortunately, what happens is that people will go to other ways of being able to deal with their stress, be it eating, drinking, gambling. And of course, for our young folks, and I'm sure there are many of us here who also turn to social media as a way of being able to fill those voids that we're really aware of when we are under stress and feeling a need to connect. There have been research done to talk about some of the cognitive behavioral therapies that have been once effective, especially in terms of smoking cessation. Unfortunately, since the pandemic, these cognitive sort of behavioral therapies just aren't as effective as they used to be. These studies are showing that, for example, this study that looks at the use of a cognitive behavioral therapy to help someone deal with their stress have been shown to not be effective, primarily because they work only when the stress level is low. If the stress level is low, as you can see from this chart here, the baseline, they can bounce back very quickly, even after 10 minutes of being exposed to a stressor and then given a cognitive behavioral therapy to deal with that particular stressor. And even at 20 minutes, that particular method works. The problem is that these cognitive methods are ineffective when the level of stress is moderate to high. And so when the study participants were put into a moderately or highly stressful condition, the cognitive methods simply failed the stress test, whether it was short-term after 10 minutes or long-term. And so we have to start thinking about, well, what is it that we can give to someone to help them deal with their stress, especially in these high stressful times. And we are truly living in a place of dealing with stress overload. So imagine your life where you have the power to switch off these stress hormones and protect yourself from stress hormones, stress overload. And so I have been fortunate enough to be exposed to emotional brain training, EBT, because I'm situated here at UC San Francisco. And a lot of the research, the neuroscientific research to support emotional brain training has been developed here at UCSF. And EBT provides us a way to overcome this stress overload. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you over the next several minutes. So I want you to know that it is a method that is scientifically based. It has been shown to be quite effective at helping us to clear out our situational stress. And it helps us really to work on those particular circuits in our brain that get turned on when we are in a stress mode. So let's go into the brain, and I'll talk to you about how it is the brain responds to stress based on the level of stress hormones that we have. So these brain states are situated in different parts of the brain, and I'm hoping that if you've listened to me talk about it, you'll get a little bit more information. And if it's the first time you've heard about brain states, you'll be able to understand how it is that you are responding to stress. So we have brain state number 1, and you see it's here saying feeling great. And I would hope that many of us know what it's like to feel absolutely great. You know that feeling. You are secreting feel-good hormones at this level. When you are in brain state 2, the difference between brain state 1 and brain state 2 is that you're feeling great, but you're not necessarily secreting feel-good hormones. Nobody's going around secreting feel-good hormones 24/7. So these are homeostatic brain states where you are not causing any harm to your body from stress hormones. So when you start to feel a little stress, you start to move down in the brain a little bit more because you're secreting some stress hormone. Brain state 3 is like something's kind of bugging you, but you can't put your finger on it. It might be you're driving in the car and you hadn't noticed that there's like noise coming from the radio. Oh, so you just turn off the radio or change the station. That's an example of a brain state 3. But if you don't address it, you will continue to be secreting stress hormones. When you're in a brain state 4, you're definitely stressed. You know exactly what happened, who said what to you. You can pinpoint why it is that you're stressed. And as you secrete even more cortisol, it makes you totally stressed out and you're in a brain state 5. This brain state is where you're unreasonable. You don't want anybody talking to you. Nothing that anybody says will make any sense to you. You see that we've already agreed that we were going to skip the polls. So I'll just go ahead. We'll come back to that if we have time. So the brain states 1 and 2 are your thinking brain. And I'm pointing this out to you because when we're talking about bringing some relief to the community and involving the community members, which includes those individuals who are smoking, you've got to help them get to a place where they can reattach to their thinking brain because they know what their needs are. When you start to be controlled by your emotional brain because of the high level of stress, you're not as engaged. It is when you are in your thinking brain that you are creative, you can communicate, you can connect, and you can be part of the solution of what you want to see in your own community. The emotional brain, when it takes over, it keeps us feeling very deep, very stressed out. And it's that time when we don't really have access to our thinking brain. And for those of you who might have heard, fight, flight, stress response, this is an indication of being in a brain state, especially brain state 4 or brain state 5. And it's where any little thing can feel a threat to you, and you just simply are trying to survive. So whether you are aware that you're in a survival mode or not, your body and your brain is pursuing life as though you are. So however it is that we wish to get out of these brain states is something that would benefit us. And this is what I'm going to share with you at this point. So I want you to imagine this file cabinet like it's your brain. We talked about the brain states. So each drawer represents a brain state, but it also represents a different level of stress where circuits that were coded during that particular stress type are stored. So those experiences that you had while you were in a very low stress are contained in drawer 1, all the way down to drawer 5, which is very high stress overload. So if you are in a very stressful situation and you cause a circuit to sort of get activated while you're in that particular stress mode, what happens is it's like somebody's opening up the drawer and all these other experiences and memories that are contained in that drawer are released. And so that's one of the reasons why being extremely stressed out and a stress mode, fight, flight response, your life is sort of amplified by those experiences that you had at a totally different time that have absolutely nothing to do with what may have triggered you to be in that brain state. Okay, and that works whether you are in very low stress or very high stress. So your brain will automatically put a different area of itself in charge, depending on the stress level. So this is going on behind the scenes. We think that we know what we're doing, but actually the emotional brain, which controls behaviors like smoking, will put a different brain area in charge. So at a brain state 1, where you have very low stress, the area in charge is the neocortex. So this is the part of the brain where we do our best thinking, creating, communicating, all of that. So very often you'll see me, point to my forehead because this is our thinking brain. This is the neocortex. This is the part that I want to be in if I'm going to sit down with a community member and talk about what I can do to help this community member get the type of community that they want. I'm not going to come in a stress mode because I'll just be triggering their circuits and causing them to go in a stress mode. So we have to be accountable and we have to be responsible when we go into situations with people that we know are dealing day to day with chronic stress, whether it's some PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome situation, or because they're dealing with systemic racism every single day of their lives. We have to be sure that we're not adding to their stress level. So we have to be responsible. So at the level 3, for example, when you're starting to be in a stress mode and you're starting to secrete a little bit of cortisol, this area in control is the limbic brain. All the way down to level 5, when we're very stressed out, it's the reptilian brain that is in charge. So when you hear people talk about the reptilian brain, it is a real thing. It is the back stem of the brain, and we are functioning from that area when we are totally stressed out. So when we talk about fight, flight, stress mode, and we can see people are generally functioning from their reptilian brain. This is universal. This happens in everybody. It's automatic and it's unconscious. So when we're in a particular stress level, we're going to activate one of the circuits encoded in our past and just repeat the associated stress response. So all the unhealthy responses are also stored in these drawers with the memories and experiences. So if we're in brain state 1, it is going to be pretty easy to pass on that cigarette. But as the stress level increases and the lower areas of the brain with more extreme stress get activated, it's going to result in unhealthier responses. And it's almost impossible when you're in these lower brain states not to reach for that cigarette. And I just, have this as an image of what happens when these drawers open. There's no shut-off valves. And of course, if you have the drawers open from brain state 1 and 2, you want to welcome that. Feeling good, feeling great. Who wants to be miserable all the time? And it is a miserable life to be stressed out and functioning from these lower parts of our brain all the time. So why can't people quit smoking? Well, I hope I kind of answered this because they're in brain states 3, 4, or 5. But again, working with somebody who's in a brain state 3 or 4 is going to be much easier than working with somebody who is in a brain state 5. We're going to skip this. I just want to share with you that there has been rigorous research done on the effectiveness of emotional brain training. If you go to ebtconnect.net/science, as I'm showing here, you'll be able to explore these studies showing that switching off stress leads to a broad spectrum of improvements in health. And in terms of emotional health, cognitive health, relationship, and other aspects of our life. So whether you wish to clear your situational stress or whether you really want to deal with some of these circuits that are just long-standing, you can actually get a lot of work done with your circuits through emotional brain training. But it requires you to be committed. It requires you to do the work. It requires you to be have a relationship with the provider of emotional brain training. So that might be a long-term solution to this, but what can we do right now? The African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council launched a coordinated effort, and we did this with a number of partners that I will share with you in just a minute. But this app is free. It's available in both Android and iPhone platforms, and individuals can easily access it without providing any identifying information or payment method. And the Spiral Up Light mobile app can be added to any smoking cessation program. The app is supported by the neuroscientific principles of emotional brain training, but it's something that can be used in the moment to help someone get out of a very moderate or just moderate stress, from low stress up to moderate levels of stress. If we're going to be dealing with the high levels of stress, there's some help with this. But again, I would recommend that if we're dealing with the high levels of stress, we do something to get emotional brain training into our communities, which means that we need to get providers who understand emotional brain training, and I'll provide some information. The Cancer Moonshot Initiative was launched in 2016, and it was revitalized in 2022 by President Biden. And it was aimed at accelerating cancer research, improving cancer prevention, and also enhancing treatment options with the goal of reducing cancer rates over the next 25 years. And it also seeks to address various factors contributing to cancer, which you have to look at social determinants of health, access to care, and also what's going on in the environment. And again, one significant factor in cancer prevention is smoking cessation. So the AATCLC was invited to a smoking cessation forum at the White House last summer, and we came out of that meeting offering to help get this free app out to anyone. And so we were able to create this electronic interactive guide on the use of the Spiral Up Light app. I've been using this app, and it's intuitive in many ways, but we wanted to make sure that it was presented to our communities in a way that would be culturally appropriate. And so the AATCLC collaborated with the UCSF Smoking Cessation Leadership Center. We worked closely with Dr. Lowell Mellon, who is the founder of Emotional Brain Training. And we had help. We had a lot of help from the Breaking Free folks, Dr. Karen Beard and her team, who are all here on this webinar with us. And it is our way of being able to introduce this app and to show that it is something that we as communities that are under siege can easily access and use. We went out of our way to make this already very easy, fun app to be helpful for anyone picking up the app for the first time. And so we did a step-by-step guide. We pointed out how to utilize the help boxes, and we basically wanted to show them that others were using this app as well. And so embedded in this e-zine is what we call it, are individual videos of others who have used this app and their experience with it. The app has been around for a number of years, but once we put out this e-zine, the folks at the Emotional Brain Training group, they saw a 700% increase in the use of this app. They could tell, in terms of how much more it was being uploaded. And so the Spiral App Light app does a really good job rapidly switching off the stress if somebody's in a brain state 3 or 4, okay? So again, if somebody is in a brain state 5, and unfortunately, these are individuals who have a lot of trauma, who have a lot of addiction, and so it's going to require the EBT tools with an EBT trained provider to get access to these brain state 5 circuits. And to rewire that trauma and the addiction circuit that is there in those circuits that are located in brain state 5, one is going to need the Spiral Up Light app and an EBT provider. So the provider can connect with the patient to use the more powerful EBT skills to switch off the circuits. I want to say that providers who are already in a relationship with clients who are smoking, I would encourage you to take a look at becoming certified in EBT. Here's some information to help you get in touch with Cassidy, who's there at EBT, who has information to help you see how easily you can be certified to provide this additional opportunity, these additional tools. And if you're looking to expand your practice, this is a good way to be able to do it. So licensed health professionals can complete this training in about 4 months. If you're going to become a certified coach, it will require a year. But all of this training is going to require that you yourself do some work here with EBT. It makes you get the tools for your own use as well. And then you have this incredible toolbox to help those who are in great need to deal with their stress. So in closing, let me just stress the need to address the demand side of the commercial tobacco epidemic, and to remember that as stress rises, our cognitive functioning is affected and the emotional brain becomes dominant. And EBT, which is a brain-based approach, provides effective tools to address our stress overload. And the Spiral Up Light is free and it's fun. I actually thought I had some QR codes. Maybe I'll bring them up towards the end. But if you want some additional information, feel free to reach out to me, Dr. Valerie Yerger. I'm at ucsf.edu. So I'll turn it over to you, Yolande.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yerger. That was excellent. I was taking my own notes. I'm going to go right into introducing our next and final keynote speaker.
I'm here.
Okay. One moment, Carol. So Carol Magruder is rounding out our summit with advocacy and momentum strategies. Carol Magruder is a seasoned veteran of California Tobacco Control, of the California Tobacco Control Experience, and a founding member and co-chairperson of the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council, AATCLC. She created to inform the direction of tobacco control policy, practices, and priorities. The AATCLC works at the intersection of public health policy and social injustice. They have fought resolutely against the decades of racialized tobacco industry targeting of the Black community and the resulting 45,000 Black lives lost each year from tobacco-related diseases. The AATCLC has been at the forefront of the national movement to restrict the sale of mentholated tobacco products, assisting municipalities across the country. They now engage with other advocates to fight back the tobacco industry's referendum on Senate Bill 793, California's statewide menthol sales ban that would have gone into effect January 1st, 2021. In 2020, the AATCLC, the Action on Smoking and Health, the American Medical Association, and the National Medical Association filed an administrative lawsuit against the Food and Drug Administration for their failure to take mentholated tobacco products off the market. The lawsuit prompted the FDA to declare that it will engage the rulemaking process to take deadly menthol and little cigarettes off the market. Carol and the AATCLC have received honors and accolades from many organizations, including the Public Health Law Center, SRNT, American Legacy Foundation, and the San Francisco and Berkeley branches of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. She served as the NAACP branch president for Berkeley, California for 2 terms. Carol Magruder.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're zooming in from. It's my pleasure to be with everyone today. So I'm going to make this final lap of this wonderful day. So this is our council, the AATCLC, of which I'm one of the very proud co-chairs. Yolande described the work that we do. We are working in advocacy. We are really pushing back against the tobacco industry, education and community engagement, building community power. That is very important to us, providing technical tailored assistance, leadership development, and more recently, litigation. So we are available to people on this call to help you in whatever endeavor you might have. I'm going to go quickly through this. I know that most of you have seen this, but we do have new people coming on board, so I want them to have the background In 2009, President Obama at that time signed the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act. And at that time, all of the flavors were taken off of the market in combustible cigarettes except for menthol. Menthol was given a pass. It was a negotiation. And we have been fighting ever since then to get it taken off the market. So this is Marie Evans, who is our inner city youth, a woman who's a little bit older than me. I thought she was my age, but I did some research, so she was a little older. She grew up in Boston public housing. She was given free Newports at the age of 9, addicted at 13, dead at 54. And her family actually sued, and they were awarded their initial judgment was $152 million, of which they received $79 million. So that's the value of the life of this woman in Boston, and how many millions of us are dying from tobacco-induced diseases in our communities. What are we owed? So this is an issue of social injustice. We know that the industry, they target everyone, but they have just been so particularly pernicious with our community. We have so many other issues to deal with, and they have really benefited from that. And it's easy for it to get pushed back to the back burner, as we see right now during this election season, where we were poised to get a ruling from the FDA, and it was pushed back due to political pressure. And so we're often the bargaining chip. And we got a real good example of that this year in 2024, but doing nothing is not an option. We are used as a tool to blunt public health policy for ourselves and for everyone else, because while 85% of African Americans who smoke a mentholated product, there are millions of other people that smoke menthol. It's not just Black folks. And so when it's blunted for us, it's blunted for everyone. The tobacco industry cartel, they cynically exploit our legitimate grievances of our community around racism, around police brutality, officer-involved killings, and they are just successfully able to block the public policy. We get right up there to the line, and then they come in and they block it. So we're in the awaiting season again now to see what's going to happen with our proposed rule and the FDA. So this is an example of the use of racism and police brutality. This was a flyer, a community meeting that was in Mount Vernon, New York. Our menthol bans a new stop and frisk. And so people, New Yorkers in New Jersey, folks back east, know all about stop and frisk, where the police just randomly stopped anybody they felt like and searched their bodies. So with that, we sued the FDA after many, many other things. We sued the FDA. So we're in our second lawsuit. And our plaintiffs are us, Action Smoking and Health, the AMA, the NMA. They had promised a rule that we didn't get, and now we filed another lawsuit just this year in April. And now we've come back with our same co-plaintiffs, but we've added in individual plaintiffs. So we have 4 menthol smokers to make sure that we have the proper standing to bring our case to court. So what should the role of cessation be in all this? And it takes it from a health issue to so much more than that. It's an issue of historical racism, of prejudice, of Black folks being left out in the cold for decades. So the fact of it being kind of like a neutral health intervention, that those days are gone. And so we are really stepping up, as you've seen Dr. Beard's wonderful presentation and transformational presentation on the direction that we need to move in, and with some of the tools that Dr. Val shared. So when we look at the historically with this is a video, so you will have access to these slides, and I'm going kind of fast because we want to have some time for Q&A. So we've had the 5 A's for smoking cessation, and the approach of what is evidence-based. And so that's the wall we hit up. I'm not saying that we want to start giving snake oil to people to help them stop smoking, but what we are saying is that we need to have innovation, and we need to step it up as we pursue methods and treatments that will help African Americans in particular, and everyone else, to get off of their nicotine addiction. So we have the 5 A's, ask, advise, assess, assist, arrange, follow up. And this one was something that I just really took particular umbrage to because for clients unwilling to make a quit attempt, assess their willingness at the next visit. And so we know so many of our, particularly our Black men who come in for care, they have some awful thing that they just cannot ignore anymore. They come in, and if there's not an assertive action to help them to get on the road to cessation, then they're not going to do it. And so we want to stop this neutrality of this being a health intervention, and we want to up the ante, and we want to increase the participation from our clinical providers and from the community, because some of these things that Dr. Beard is talking about, some of these things should be coming from the community with support from clinicians, I think. So these are the smoking cessation medications that we have. Nothing has changed on this list in a long time. This is the same list that's been out, I think, for decades. And so this is the advertisement for Shantix cold turkey. And we compare that to the sexy advertising to get people hooked to these products. And so we've kind of gathered all the low-hanging fruit. And now it's time for us to really do the work that we need to do and to help the people who are on those high branches who require some innovation and some resources to help them with their nicotine addiction. So we know that African Americans have lower quit rates, even though we have more quit attempts, that we have high relapse rates, that we're more likely to smoke within 10 minutes of awakening. And then there's also the melanin issue. And Dr. Val has done a lot of research on this, and that melanin concentration, which is what gives us our color, is positively related to the number of cigarettes smoked daily, higher levels of nicotine dependence, and greater nicotine exposure. So that's a whole nother level with African Americans and nicotine addiction. So this slide is about the turkey again, and the video you'll be able to see on your own, compared to all of the advertising that Ebony and Jet magazine in particular, which is what was out when I was growing up, the Johnson House of Publication was built off of Newport cigarettes advertising. And so we need something just as strong and just as measured as the racist, pernicious targeting that we've endured. And so our government, with the FDA, the passage of the Tobacco Control Act, has been investing in tobacco regulatory science. And so these are the 7 key areas. And since the act was signed by President Obama, these TCOR centers came online and have been funded. And so, a lot of money has been spent, hundreds of millions of dollars. And where are the results? And so we poor people here at the bottom of the food chain, we're told, it needs to have some evidence. It needs to have some science behind it. And so we want to know, we demand some of this money to be invested in helping us in a friendly way, not having us jump over the same bar as the University of California, San Francisco, or the University of Southern California, but to make it friendlier to communities so that we can help to solve some of our own issues where we have been just left out on our own for all of these decades. So these are some of the TCORs, and some of these I'm on their advisory boards. I've participated in these since their inception. And we're demanding a little bit more. We're demanding more. We're demanding some that if we're not good enough to have our own evidence base. So where is it? Where is it? So where's the beef? This was an old commercial. After all this money, where's the beef? Where's the beef? So we put that back on the research community. So what we're talking about is assertive cessation. And assertive cessation does not shame the patient. We know that doesn't work. Nagging doesn't work, but it's no longer just a neutral health intervention. Kaiser's great. When you go to Kaiser, that's, they ask you when they're taking your blood pressure, are you a smoker? And then they steer you along, but it's not. We want something a little more assertive than the screening question, what happens after that? And we want cessation counselors to be educated on all of these issues that we're talking about, and for them to be taught of how to integrate it into their work so that they're comfortable addressing these issues with people. We want included in cessation material information about that the tobacco industry, they are federally adjudicated racketeers, like the mafia. That should be included. We want information on policy work that's being done locally in that person's area, at the local, the state, and the national levels, so they can see how this ties in to their addiction, to their being survivors of this predatory industry. We no longer want a patient to have to set a quit date to receive the services that they have already paid for through tobacco taxes. People who smoke have already paid for every service that we could ever give them, and they need, and it's time for us to pay up as a society on that. And my good friend Sally Herndon in North Carolina, she has some studies about that the people who on the scale who were not ready, they had better results than the people who had more readiness. So looking at that in a new light, and re-examining some of the notions that we take for granted as science. We want patients to have to opt out. So they have to refuse treatment. When a person goes in, if they're diabetic, the doctor doesn't say, you know, I would you like to try some insulin or whatever the medication is, they prescribe it. And it's up to the patient then to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be compliant. And then there's another level that kicks in then for non-compliant patients to help them to be compliant with their treatment. We need community and peer providers and messengers. We need people from the community to be involved in this process. And I dare say I would love to see smokers being a part of smoking cessation, just as a support group for people who need to lose a few pounds. I'd have more in common with someone my own weight, us helping each other, than maybe perhaps someone who was slim. And then once again, the evidence base, it's a criminal bar when there's little evidence being gathered, and then in who is gathering the evidence. Because I can assure you, if Dr. Beard is in our community talking to folks, she's going to get a different response than other people, researchers who are not from our community. And that's not to say that non-African Americans, you know, can't go in and do good research. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that who is gathering the evidence and who's involved in that. And we need innovation. We need innovation. And so these, you know, this slide I just put together from Dr. Beard's presentation, you know, transactional versus transformational. I'm going to go with transformational every time. And we need reparations. And so some of this, the industry needs to be paying for. You know, we need reparations, and we need the same amount of attention, and attention equals resources that the tobacco industry has visited upon us for all these decades. We need that same level. We need to not be afraid of spirituality, of talking about the soul. So many times, our public health, they're divorcing spirituality from treatment, because we're supposed to be a society that's it's not about religion. And so I'm not talking about religion, but I am talking about spirituality and the soul. And that can go with any religion. We need to take into account the broader context of individual and communal lives. And Dr. Beard, she talked about this. And we should not be afraid to treat people well, to pamper them. I remember some years ago, the hassle that some of my colleagues had to go through just to get NRTs, nicotine replacement therapy, for Medi-Cal recipients. So Medi-Cal is our health insurance for low-income people. And the hoops that they had to go to the hoops that people had to jump to get folks the NRT when they did, and most of the people didn't want them anyway, because, you know, that's not really innovative. But that was like a big thing to give smokers something that they've already paid for through their tobacco taxes. So we want to not be afraid to pamper people, to give people massage therapy, hypnotherapy, a membership at a gym. These are things that are part of health and wellness. And these are things that we need to embrace, and we need to support our people getting and receiving. So the restorative liberation framework of transactional versus transformative, and we need real community involvement. And so I have this picture of my Martha Stewart. I love Martha. I've followed her over the years. But this is a brother who I saw on a Delta plane flying. He had a master class at the LA Gangster Gardener, and he got my attention. I have attended a Black farming conference because of him. And I saw this video maybe 2 or 3 years ago, his video. So who is the messenger? Who's involved in our healing, and in our acknowledging the wounding that we have experienced? And these are people from the community. This is a project that Dr. Val and I worked on in Los Angeles. These are some of my community partners from San Francisco, both of whom were smokers. So this is about bringing these people and paying them into this conversation and into this solution for our community. These are our community research partners. These are some classes that Dr. Val and I did in Los Angeles, training people how to do our African American pre-cessation enhancement intervention. And all of these people were very capable. They were all smokers, and they all could have contributed to this process. And so we want to open the doors up and let people in to help themselves and to help us as well. So I'm going to stop there. And Ms. Burrs, I guess we have some time for a few questions.
Thank you so much, Carol. We do have time for some questions. Thank you all for fielding your questions. I know we may not be able to answer all of them. Not to worry. We will be sending a document that has all of the questions that you've asked with answers. I will start with a few questions for Dr. Yerger. First one is the easy one. How much does the EBT training cost?
Ooh, I don't know the answer to that. I did provide contact information. I would say definitely let them know that you were referred to them by me. I do know that they are working on getting funding so that therapists and providers who are working with vulnerable populations can do the training for free or even minimally. I don't know where they are in that process. But if you reach out to me, I can help facilitate that communication.
Wonderful. And is EBT useful for youth who vape to relieve stress?
Absolutely. I love it. In fact, when you're doing the full emotional brain training, there is a specific app to help you with that. The Spiral Up Light app that I introduced everyone to, the one that is free and easily available, is designed to be used on the spot for those stressful moments. Using the app will not help you to get rid of those circuits that are causing you to smoke, but in the moment for dealing with your stress, it is very, very helpful. The app was designed for adolescents, and then they discovered that those of us who are a little bit older also are having fun using the app as well. So I would say yes, yes, yes.
Very good. And one last question for you. Thank you for this presentation. I had two questions. One, when someone is going through nicotine withdrawal, does it automatically lower their brain state due to the biochemistry of the brain and the response to the lack of nicotine?
I saw that question, and I think that is a wonderful question. I don't know if any of the research has actually been done to answer that, but anecdotally, I would say there are going to be reactions to nicotine withdrawal, and that could cause you to go into a stress mode. But if you have the tools to deal with it, it helps you, because what I didn't get into is how the tool can help you just move through a flow of emotions. And it's going through that flow of emotions where you actually come out of a stress mode. So I would say that if anybody is being triggered to constantly go into a stress mode because they really want to pick up that cigarette and they're trying their best not to, and that's causing some other reaction due to the lack of nicotine, then go ahead and use the app, because it doesn't matter the source of the stress. The app is designed to deal with the stress in the moment. So I hope that answers your question. And then also remember that if you have and you're working with somebody dealing with their nicotine withdrawal, you're going to want to support them in other ways as well. Nutritionally, we know the importance of B vitamins, for example, for dealing with stress. Nicotine depletes the body of B vitamins. So you're going to want to take a holistic approach to dealing with somebody going through nicotine withdrawal. Okay, so it's a comprehensive approach, and the app dealing with it through EBT is part of that puzzle.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for Dr. Beard. Can you walk us through an example of using the restorative liberation framework for how to best help an African American individual that walks into a health department or calls in and wants to stop smoking? Say you are able to set up an appointment with them and have 30 minutes. This may be the only chance you have to work with this individual. How would you start the conversation? What would be the key things to ask? And what common answers have you gotten? How would you respond further to best help during this encounter?
Okay, thank you for the question.
Yeah, 2
First,
minutes, Karen.
well,
Yes,
okay.
yes, sure.
Well,
Just
first of
teasing.
all, understand that the restorative liberation is a framework. And so that, think of it as like a blueprint. If you were building a house, you would have your blueprint. I went pretty fast through it. So I just gave you a bird's eye view of what the framework is, how you should think, the principles that you should follow or use as a guide when you are developing interventions. So it's not really like a tool you would use to say intervene with a person. For instance, for self-care, in my model, I used dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. That's within the framework, but the framework is not something that you use to help people. You would intervene individually or in a group. You would use the framework to decide what the content, the context, and the delivery of your program. But to answer your question about what I would say to someone that came in, the first thing I do is I congratulate them for taking the step. And then the next thing, remember, when they come in, your goal is to somehow get into their world. You want to understand who's in front of you and what that person is all about. I know I'm out of town. It's 12 o'clock, but I hope that answered your question. And I can answer it in more depth, and we'll send it to you.
Thank you, Dr. Beard. We still have a couple of questions left, and as I stated, we will answer your questions. I'll be happy to send the questions and answers to you via email. So do not fret. Please continue to enter your questions in our chat, and we will definitely respond to you. But we do want to be mindful of your time, and we thank you for spending your morning and your afternoon with us. I do want to leave it open for closing sentiments from our presenters today.
I had a question for Dr. Beard. Dr. Beard, would you be interested in doing a training of the trainers in some of your methods?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if people are interested in that, please let us know. and we can see what we can do to arrange that, because I'm interested myself. Very interested.
Dr. Yerger, any final comment?
Yeah, so you guys know this is right up my naturopathic training, to look at solutions from a holistic, integrative approach. So I think we're really onto something in terms of cessation. We know that there hasn't been a lot of great evidence of how to treat African Americans who smoke, especially menthol cigarettes, because the research hasn't really been designed the right kind of way. The right questions haven't been asked, and we're starting to do that. And it just makes me proud to be a part of this. And so we're all learning this together. So everybody has a place.
Amen. And I want to give Dr. Beard the last word, but I just want to say that something Dr. Beard said, and that I have thought and talked about, what is success? And so if we're just measuring if a person stops smoking or not, when so many other important, wonderful things could be happening, and that change, sometimes it happens slow and then it just happens. And it seems like it happened overnight, but it was something that someone said to you 2 years ago, and that's valid and real. And so how do we capture that? How do we measure that? How do we value that? When you're in a research project and you have 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and that's it. So Dr. Beard, why don't you take us out, please?
Okay, I would just like to say, remember, transformational and not transactional. That is the goal when you're working with African Americans who smoke.
Very good. We thank you all for joining us. This has been an Amplify and Breaking Free presentation. Please, let's keep this dialogue going. Sign up for our newsletter, keep in touch through social media, and we'll have future events for you. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.
Bye-bye, everyone.